Welcome to the Rankled Engineer podcast. I'm Gates. Of course, I'm here with Tim. And we've got a fun crew today because we have three former interns that worked for Tim and I, or with Tim and I, and they're here to, I don't know what they're gonna say about us, but it should be, I think, quite fun. All three of these interns worked with us at Disneyland, which in and of itself makes it a lot of fun. And I think we're going to give you an opportunity to get to know each one of them. We've got Denise, and we have Victoria and Alle, who are both returning to the Rankled Engineer. So Denise, can you tell me, your discipline, your license, where you work, all those fun. Let's get to know Denise. Where's Denise from?
Sure. Well, hi, I'm Denise. I'm from San Diego. I went to UC San Diego. I graduated in 2017 with a bachelor's in structural engineering. And right after graduation, I went straight into Disneyland to be a mentee of Tim and Gates for a year as their structural intern. I now currently work for a consultant that does a lot of Disneyland projects as well. So my role hasn't really changed. As for my license status, I just got my PE license a month ago.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And what is your, well, first, shout out to being a UC San Diego structural engineering grad. That was what impressed Tim and I.
One of my favorite
really?
schools. Yeah, I didn't go there. It's one of my top two schools to
I've known you guys for so long and you never told me that.
Well,
I'm sure
that's what today is for.
Yes, there you go.
Just considering it's a big family reunion, it's going to be a total cry fest. Just kidding.
And what's your favorite Disney attraction? I don't want shows because I think we'll all say Fantasmic. So attraction.
So my go-to it's kind of a weird one, but I love oh my gosh, I can't even remember the name. The ride with Figment in Epcot.
Journey
into Imagination.
Journey into Imagination with Figment. It's been so long. I haven't been to Disney World in 2 years. I'm so sorry, and I'm so disappointed in myself for forgetting the actual name. But just fun, kooky ride, short lines most of the time.
Everybody loves Figment, and you college programmed at Disney World, correct? Or interned?
I did an internship with safety services in Disney World in the middle of my college career for 4 months.
Very cool. Very cool. Now you got to study up for the SE exam.
Yep. Give me 3 years, right? It's 3, right?
Yes. All right, Victoria. We've talked to you before, but go ahead and remind us where you come from.
I'm Victoria. I come from South Carolina. I did my undergrad at Clemson University, and then I did my master's at UCLA, and then I went Disney. So, license status. Yeah, girl, I'm licensed.
Awesome.
Yeah.
But you're not an engineer.
I'm an architect.
Right.
It's hard. It was a lot of tests. So
It is. California has a lot of tests for architecture.
Very awesome. And you do something else on the side too, right?
Oh yeah, I got a YouTube, designSHING. Gates is gonna drop a link over there.
Somewhere, yes.
somewhere on the screen. So check it out if you want some fun DIYs.
Awesome. It's always fun to have an architect to keep us honest. Otherwise, we might exaggerate a few things. And Alle, this is like your third or fourth time. Go ahead, give us the rundown.
I'm Alle. I went to University of Kansas, KU, for my undergrad. I did the college program at Disney World as a lifeguard. And then after my college program and in my last semester, I went out to Disneyland for 6 months and did structural engineering out there as an intern. And now I'm back in Kansas City, and I work for a consulting firm that does a lot of building design. And I just got my California license, so I too am licensed.
Awesome. And jumping back to Victoria, favorite attraction?
Oh yeah. Wait, I wanted to comment on Denise's. Am I allowed
go
to do
for
that?
it. Go for it. 'Cause that's an odd.
It's
a great ride, but favorite is tough for me to understand.
So when I was like a little kid, that was my favorite ride, Figment. And then somewhere around about 2001, I went to the attraction and they had totally taken out Figment. It was this like stupid like scientist bull crap, and we complained, and everybody's mad about it. And they put Figment back in, but I think it's still not as good as, at least, I mean, I was a kid. I probably remember it being amazing, but it's not as good as I remember. I do like Figment though.
So your petition changed things. Good job.
Yeah.
I definitely
My
remember
favorite-
the 1.0 on that one.
The 2.0 was awful. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, so like why it was bad is they would like spray fart smell at you. I
They still
hate
do
any
that.
attraction that sprays a fart smell at you. Like, who wants that?
Looking at you, tough to be a bug.
I mean, technically it's skunks, but we'll go for it.
My favorite is probably Indiana Jones. I like
It's a solid
being in the
choice.
back on the left
In the
side,
corner.
and you like woo, like whipped around.
Yeah, that's definitely one. If you're on the edges, you get more motion, and if you're in the front or back, it's a wilder ride. And then before you give us your attraction, Alle, I want to know, did the lifeguarding help you in your career at all?
It was the most stressful job I've ever done, and I told myself I am never working like frontline operations at Disney because I cannot handle this guest-facing environment. Like, it was one of the just stressful.
Which places did you work? Which locations did you work?
Pop Century and Art of Animation. Just a lot of kids all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
But there's
Yeah.
young parents and they have nice bodies, so that's the place you want to be.
Don't always watch their kids, but
Absolutely. And your favorite attraction?
Jungle Cruise.
Awesome. I respect that. Tim,
Yep.
do you have a favorite attraction?
Yeah, mine's always been Mansion.
I think I have to go Indiana Jones, but Thunder Mountain in Paris is a really close second for me. And
Yeah, that one's
Kent
pretty crazy.
Estes, his favorite attraction is Indiana Jones. So there you go. You can't go wrong with a pick by that. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, great to get to know you a little bit better and let our audience see you. So I sent some questions out, and I think we're gonna give each of you an opportunity to speak. So you don't need to yell over each other, but with enthusiasm. But I did ask the question: what mentoring style do you think Tim and I have?
Mean.
Me? Oh. Okay.
Look at I'm
Alle,
already wanting
Alle,
to
what's our
defend myself.
I don't think that's mean. I thought Tim was very like technical. Like, he would get you into the code book and explain things. I remember him explaining wind loading to me. It's just like,
I
was
would
like,
agree.
this
Yeah.
makes sense. And he had
But I give you the
did it-
wind class.
Yeah, but it made sense. You like you explained it at a level to me at that age could understand what was going on, and it
Good.
just didn't completely
Hopefully that
go
means
over my
I
head.
understand it.
I think for me, I would have to agree with Alle when it comes to Tim. Like, I remember when I was an intern and I asked one question about welding,
Oh, no.
and he was just like, just put like an hour down in my calendar and we'll go through it. And so I did. And then
I was there. on the
Yeah,
other
you
side
were
of the
there, right?
wall. Yeah.
Victoria. And I ended up sitting in your office for like 3 to 4 hours with you just taking me through the welding portion of the steel manual. And up until today, I'm like, nothing can ever beat that type of welding 101 lecture, because I use it all the time.
I've got a
my
PowerPoint
welding
now
class
that's-
is one of my best.
Yeah, I've got a 3-hour PowerPoint presentation, 3 sessions on welding, and it's Tim approved.
As for Gates, what I wrote down was that you kind of just gave me a task to do and left me to my own resources. That was kind of just like the whole year. It was just like, hey, here's this, do this. I'm like, oh, okay. And I would just go on my own and try to learn it on my own, go back to Gates, see if it was Gates approved. And if it wasn't, go back to my little cubicle, redo everything again, and go to him until, it was approved by him. But
You know what though? That does raise the point that I'm basically the front end guy and he's the back end guy in terms of, I'll teach you up front. He won't. And then once you put it on paper, I don't do as much evaluating of what you've done as Gates does. He's like, no, let me tear apart what you have done here.
Yeah, and I remember, Tim, you told me once that Gates really approved of one of my fall protection calc packages one day,
Mhm.
and I never get that kind of compliment from him, and I almost cried when I heard that.
So hold on here, though. I have told you that you have the prettiest calculations I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, you have nice handwriting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I've said that to many of folks, and you're gonna have to send me a sheet. We'll show the audience because I've had a couple people have come close, but literally Denise's are the prettiest calculation packages I've ever seen.
I have some of my win loading for what did I do here? Window anchor loading. Yeah,
Yes.
This is just my draft. So
Yeah.
also,
Everything was
Before
like,
you go through and clean it up.
yeah, it was like rulered out. I'm like, you got to go digital at that point. I think you need to start doing it on a tablet. What's funny is, so I wrote down what I thought our mentoring philosophies were, and I think it pretty much nailed that. It is, we're going to show you in the code, and you need to form your own opinion. And you're going to be left to do the tasks on your own, figure it out for yourself, and then come back to us for guidance. And so I think we hit pretty much all those notes. And that's definitely been something because you're not always going to be a mentee, right? You're not always going to have a mentor. You have to develop the skills to read the code and then to use that to develop your proper professional opinions and inform your designs. And so I think we did our job, Tim.
Honestly, that's my weakness, though. I love to teach, and I will keep teaching forever, if you give me the opportunity. So that's like part of the problem.
I had a bullet point on the little notes I did before this meeting, and I was just like, Tim would be a great teacher.
Well, yeah, you should.
Education setting.
And I know somebody
when I
wants you as a
retire,
professor.
Yes. Yeah, Tim would definitely fill that role well.
Like, so I will say about like Gates, I not structural. We didn't really like work together on structural things, but I always felt like you had a lot of trust in me, which, me being like a young intern, I was like, oh, that's awesome. Like he really like trust. So it was kind of like the go out and get it done strategy. I think it's like empowering, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so in our role, right, as the engineer of record, is we're the safety net anyways. We're going to take the responsibility for it. And so you need that opportunity, I think, to go make mistakes that are going to get caught before they go out, as opposed to when you're on your own or you have that responsibility. Because obviously that's the goal, is to get you licensed and self-sufficient.
You try to read people to determine what their learning style is and try to adapt to that. Like I know with Victoria, she's a more aggressive. I'm going to try to figure this out kind of thing. And some people aren't as comfortable with that. They're like, I want all the background and then I will make a decision. So, you have to determine what the learning style is of various people.
Is there anything that we taught you that has helped you with your career or in your life?
Oh, I've got one. So
Okay.
Tim and I were walking on a construction site or around one, and there is this like the rebar up, and someone had put like solo cups over it. And Tim was like laughing about it, saying like, well, that's not exactly what they should do, but what they're doing is trying to like cover the pointy end of the rebar so it's safer. And I was like, oh, okay, interesting. And then I was taking an exam of sorts, and a picture came up and it was like, point out the safety hazard on this construction site. And I knew exactly what it was because of Tim talking about the solo cups.
Did they have just bare rebar or did they have something other than? Oh, okay. Yeah.
You got to have those OSHA caps.
Yeah. And they've even changed it now. They want those big flat ones and not the round ones like they used to have. Because they're like, yeah, the round ones aren't good enough. I'm like, all right. So now it's the giant flat ones all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say the thing.
I know, not the point. Sorry.
The thing I remember that Tim taught me was obviously like wind loading. The thing you recently taught me from one of our previous podcasts was that the live load, the lateral 5 PSF is live load, not wind load.
Yeah.
And then also how to properly write hand calcs. You were like, this is how you should format your hand calcs. And I've used that at every office I've been in. And they always tell me you have really clean and neat hand calcs. And that's
good.
Because
I think-
I've used it since.
Yeah, I think I learned like my calcs and how to like structure it from Tim as well. And to kind of piggyback off of what Gates was saying earlier of, trying to find your own resources, like being, in an office that does a lot of consulting work for like themed engineering type stuff, we don't have normal structures most of the time. So I would have to, tear up through my resources to try to find something that would make sense in terms of applying engineering to something that doesn't seem like it would be engineered. And that's helped me a lot, just trying to like looking through different resources and the codes and all that stuff. And of course,
yeah,
Tim,
learning to be a researcher, that's really important.
And in the research realm, so Tim and I like to play some games on the Intern, and we tended to be like, here's a problem, I want the answer, go figure it out.
Was that you or Tim that did that?
Tim would do it a lot, but there were a few. So we gave a couple to Denise that were pretty brutal because they were like composite sections.
I don't remember that.
I remember like an email that was sent out. It was like, I don't know, some sort of math problem. And I was, the architect was determined to get it before a particular person. So I was like going around to people like trying to figure it out. It was just like sending an email like, here, interns, as a challenge. Like, okay.
Yeah, I know Tim would give me like really calculus heavy problems that just didn't seem like it related to any structure. I remember taking up a whole 11 by 17 paper on trying to solve one integral one day. And this was early on in my intern year. And I don't know if I actually figured it out or not, but I do remember you saying that I had really pretty handwriting.
Well, not to overemphasize that, but it is important. But yeah, I one of my favorite comments when I give calculus problems to interns is they'll say to me, "Do you know how long it's been since I've taken calculus?" And I look at them and I'm like, "Do you know how long it's been for me?" I mean, what has it been now? I mean, 25 years since I've taken calculus. It's about right.
But it's always fun to see the level of detail and resiliency that comes out of interns that are trying to tackle a really hard problem that you would think would have a simple solution. I think that's usually what it was, right? It was a difficult problem that looked easy, but when you really tore into it, it was a thinker.
Yeah, exactly. As far as things that I've taught before, I remember I had this one intern. Well, no, sorry, he wasn't an intern. He was just a new engineer 15 years ago, a new graduate. And he was a bright guy and did a lot of good stuff. But one thing is his handwriting was impossible. And I sat him down and taught him the alphabet. And I made him write the alphabet until he got it right. And he was pissed because he felt like that was like second grade. And I'm like, yeah, it is. Why didn't you learn it in second grade? I'm like, whatever your deficiencies are, I don't care how far back they go. That's what we're going to be looking at.
I think it's your teacher. Like I had a really good teacher that like was very good at teaching handwriting. And then my sister, she had a different kindergarten teacher. Our handwriting is totally different. Like I think it's really like that young, like just instilled in your head.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment because my handwriting's atrocious. Anybody who's picked up my red lines knows that they're not great. So I want to circle back onto Victoria's mean comment.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I don't know. Okay, the fact is I'm direct. I can definitely be direct.
Well,
but you know what I don't do is ever deride somebody for something that they should have learned in school. Because even though I know they were exposed to certain things, I do not ever expect everybody to pick up 100% of what they were exposed to in school. I'm like, no problem. Let's just go right on through this. But I definitely speak in a direct manner, so that's probably where I get the mean thing from.
Well, I didn't really think you guys were mean, but Gates, you did call me intern instead of Victoria.
I think that was pretty ubiquitous, though. It wasn't just you that I called intern. So to that end, I think it's a little bit like raising your kids. Like you gotta be a little bit firm or a little bit curt with them to help them understand their place, because you're full of so much energy and ideas. We've got to focus that down a little bit. And the classic example I remember, I don't think it was any of you, but we were sitting at a project meeting on site with limited seating at the main table. And we it's a big place, so it took a while to get there. And we arrived a little late. And I actually had Denise's boss with me, her current boss with me. And we arrived at the table, and I'm paying $175 an hour for him to be here, for him to be at this meeting. And so we arrived, and there were two interns seated at the table, and then there were seats around the room. And I said, "You need to move." And I said it just like that. And they both looked at me and were like, "I can't tell if you're joking." And if it had been Alle, she would have been able to tell that I wasn't joking. I said, "I'm not joking. Yeah, you need to move." And they couldn't understand why. I said, $175 an hour, not quite. You're here to learn. He's here to do the work. He needs to be at the table. And so we were very direct about the hierarchy of the engineering and architectural community. You guys are exposed to a lot, and we try to expose you to as much as possible. But when the work is getting done, sometimes you got to get out of the way. Let the work get done. And I feel that's where we were kind of firm and direct, that we're here to teach you, but we're also here to get the job done.
Yeah, we had an interesting conversation recently about kind of like interns. If we want to bring back interns, but sort of someone had an idea of like a hierarchy, and like the lesser people, I don't know, the younger people in their career are just like working away and they don't go to meetings. And we all fought really hard for like, no, they should go to the meetings. They need to like experience this. They need to build the relationships. Maybe they're not sitting at the table, but they need to know who everybody is.
Yes.
And say I've been lucky with the past two companies I've worked with as a young engineer, because they'll take me to every single meeting and they'll be like, "We know that you don't know what's going on, but like eventually you're going to be in these meetings and we'll need to know what's going on." So I get to tag along to a lot of those and sit in on them.
Yeah, it's tricky. You need to learn when to talk and when not to, and that's that's something I struggle with overall. But I mean,
I was going to say it.
The more practice you get being at meetings and sort of watching the guy you're there with, whoever that is. And I mean, I've even had people in meetings sometimes who bring me to a meeting specifically to dress somebody down or something like that. And I'll be silent for 55 out of 60 minutes. And they keep looking at me like, "When are you going to say something? When are you going to say something?" I'm like, hold on. And I keep listening and keep listening and keep listening. And then we get to the last 5 minutes of the meeting and I just unload on them. And I'm like, this is how it's going to be. Go back and do this or that and that kind of thing. But it's not how much time necessarily you spend talking. It's kind of the quality of what you say. So learning to hold your tongue is just as important as learning when to talk, I think.
Well, this is the
Why
fun
does everybody
question.
get quiet after I say something? What is it about the way I say stuff that makes everybody go quiet?
You got to think about it. You got to think about it and formulate a response.
Yeah.
No, words of wisdom there, Tim. This is the fun one. What's something that we told you that was wrong?
Object.
I couldn't think of anything, to be honest. I was like, you guys have steered me pretty in the right direction every time I've asked.
Yeah, same here. Like that's the question that I thought about the most, Gates, ever since you sent it to me. And I was just like, we've been taught so many things and I have used so many of them. And I just can't think of a specific thing that was taught or said wrong.
Can I rephrase the question a little bit then? Were you over or under mentored?
think good amount. I mean, I obviously like wasn't directly with you guys, but I
What are you talking about? You sat like right across from Tim.
yeah, but I think different discipline. But I mean,
She had more osmosis mentoring than everybody
Yeah.
else.
I'd go talk to Tim, and I remember Victoria would be like really quiet, and occasionally she'd giggle or something, or we'd be like, "Victoria, are you awake? What do you think about that?" Like, because
yeah,
we knew
always
she was
listening.
over there. Just,
Yeah, I would love that because I always knew she was listening.
Yeah, I always felt like I go to Tim when I needed like structural knowledge. I would take what I had if it was like steel framing or something that I need like structural engineering input in, and he'd like teach me something and
Right,
send
like
me on my way.
how does the structural part of this detail work, or what size beam am I looking at, that kind of thing. Yeah, she'd come over for quick questions, and that was always good. I like that, just to keep herself moving.
You taught me to use mils instead of gauge, and then
for
Yeah.
cold form.
Yeah.
That's still hard for me to think about. I forced myself that direction personally, but that's the way the industry went. So that's what I try to teach the younger people, so they don't ever get stuck up in gauge.
Absolutely.
let's fight after you again.
What about Alle? Alle or Denise?
I'll answer the question. I think at the time, I was so adamant on trying to learn so much, and I felt like I didn't really get that from Gates because he would leave me to my own resources. But that's how I felt at the time. But ever since you sent the questions to me, Gates, I would think back on it. Like it was a good foundation. Like having like you and Tim as a mentor, it really helped set me up for what I currently do. And it, like I said, it was a good foundation. I think it was pretty well balanced since Tim is a lecturer and Gates is, do your own thing and come back to me. So there's not really a straightforward answer to whether I was over or under mentored. If I was under mentored, obviously I wouldn't be where I am in my career today.
Oh, well, that's the funny thing with Denise in particular, was she switched over to a company where I was able to keep an eye on her post me, watching her do her professional thing. And by the time it finally came time to sign her PE paperwork, I'm like, I'm more confident in her than I have been in just about anybody that I've done recently. So, having reviewed her calcs so many times and her plans and stuff, I did with Denise exactly what the state of California wants in terms of oversight, and and my confidence level was really high. So you did a good job of transitioning into that part of of learning. I was also going to say, the funny thing is, myself, I would have wanted to be mentored by Gates and not me, because that's my learning style, is more in line with what he does. Figure it out, and then I show him like as close as I could get, and he'd be like, well, this is good, but this is not, and here's where you can fix it, go back and fix it. That kind of thing I would have been happier with personally, which is kind of funny. So it just goes to show that teaching styles don't necessarily coordinate with what I would want personally.
Well,
go ahead, Victoria.
Even with your teaching style, if you're like a lecturer, Tim, you're not a hand holder. And I think that's kind of like neither of you are hand holders. So I think that's the difference, is like there's this kind of mentor that's like, you need to like do this and like just like do everything my way, like baby him the entire time. But I'd say two very different approaches to mentoring, but neither of them are like cradling.
Okay, that's a good point, because I do try to teach the concept and then send you off to do the project.
Yeah.
And I was my first mentor in structure. He was very go do the work and bring it back to me. So that's where I picked it up from. I remember the first day I showed up to work while I was in college, and he said, "We've got a freestanding garage that needs to be designed, and you're going to do it." Okay, sure. And he said, "Do you know what WL squared over 8 is?" And I'm like, No, sounds pretty good to me though. He's like, it's going to be your best friend, and that was my introduction into the shortcuts that engineers use to determine forces and loads. And over the course of 3 days, I put together a masonry wall and a timber roof, and you know, he showed me how to design a beam. Said, "Here's where you look in the NDS," and I did it. Is this right? You replicate it, and then it was on to the next piece. So.
Oh, so let me tell you about my first project then, because it's kind of that reminds me of it. So I was in Orlando working for a company there. My boss gave me a project. He said, your project is in Adventureland in the Magic Kingdom, and you're designing a building out of aluminum. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So I'm like, I'll basically just use the steel manual and then adjust the FY, and away you go, right? And he's like, wouldn't that be nice? I'm like, well, what do you do? And he hands me the aluminum design manual, which nobody in school ever heard of, right? So he hands me this thing. He's like, this is how you design it. Have fun. So like I just finished getting my bachelor's, and I was taught all these things, and my very first project was like, yeah, sorry, no, you're going to be using this.
Completely.
In addition to the fact that I was in Florida and wind loading was completely different than California schools taught. So that was a challenge, but I'm sort of studious as far as that's concerned. And I just checked 2 weeks ago, it's still standing. It has survived many hurricanes now.
I was gonna say, for when you guys mentored me, I don't remember hardly doing any projects with you, Gates, like directly under you, but I remember eating a lot of cookies and you teaching me life lessons. Basically, you're like, you need to get a credit card. Like, you need to get a credit card. And sure enough, I got a credit card after that semester for my first credit card.
And I both do that. Every intern, I will talk to them about credit. I will talk to them about buying houses, about debt, about retirement. It's so funny.
How much
like,
I should be spending each paycheck.
Yeah.
And what does that have to do with anything? And in my opinion, financial matters are a huge stressor in people's lives. And if I can help to get rid of that actually leaves more room in their brains for their job. So that's to me how it relates, So I'll talk to them for a couple of hours about like finances and stuff like that. And it's kind of funny because I think about a lot of the people that I've mentored now, and a lot of them are really good with their finances. So I mean, that's,
And I'm going to poke fun at Andy because he was supposed to be here tonight and he's not. When you taught him how to cook and make food at home.
That was you, Tim?
Oh, right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Because he was eating out for every meal. And I'm like, there's got to be a happy medium here. Yeah, I took him shopping. Oh, and I also taught him how to drive a stick shift. And that was on the same day.
It's a good intern program, right? It's an awesome intern program.
It's a very comprehensive internship.
So this mentoring's always been a bit funny to me because we're so willing. Most engineers are so willing to train and help younger engineers learn. I'm going, but I'm training my competitors. Right? Like, so Tim, why is that? Why is it that we train? Why is it that we mentor?
I don't know. I think it's just a natural instinct, kind of. And that makes me want to kind of ask you guys a question. Have you guys done any training of younger people already?
I have. I had an intern, I think 2 years ago, who was a junior at studying civil with an emphasis in structural. And we had him for, I want to say like 2 or 3 months. And of course, being like, knowing where he was coming from and his position, I was just like, I will be some sort of mentee to him or mentor to him. And during that time, I was just so busy with work and kind of like going back to what Gates was saying, like I kind of needed to get the job done, especially during that particular time. I was so busy. So I was kind of a little hesitant to mentor still because I was only like 2 or 3 years into designing things, and just seeing where they came from, like I was just like, oh, my teaching style is kind of like Tim on like the first day, where I sat down with him for 4 hours and explained everything about the engineering industry or how projects work. And then after a while, I realized like, oh, maybe I'm more of Gates, where I kind of just gave him something to do. He would come back to me, I would bleed all over his CAD drawings and red pen, and then he would, get scared and go back to his desk kind of thing. But that was kind of the only opportunity that I've had so far. And I think about that a lot because I'm like, I really hope it helped him somehow. And I do keep in touch with him sometimes, but I think now he's getting his master's in structural. But I think I hope he had a good experience.
Yeah, it's definitely different than being in school. And that's always the first thing I tell the interns. I'm like, you're going to be kind of down on yourself in the beginning because you're going to feel like, what did I learn? Why did I even go to school? Because it seems like there is so much more that I don't know than what I do know. And I always tried to emphasize, you were given a toolkit. Don't worry about the fact that you don't know how to use all your tools perfectly yet. That toolkit is critical. And I, needed you to learn that. If you had just come off the street, I couldn't do anything with you. So, don't be down on what they taught you in school. Their job was not to teach you to be an engineer. It was to teach you to get to this point. And our job is to get you the next couple of years up to the point where you're ready to take your licensing exam. So that's why I don't ever want anybody to think that school somehow failed them or they failed at school. I see that a lot of times, and I would try to impress on them that that's not the case. You're fine. You're good. This is just where you are currently. We're picking up the ball and we're running with it.
Well, in architecture, school doesn't even try to attempt to teach you how to be an architect.
It's even worse than architecture.
Well, they want to teach you how to be like a critical thinker. And we come out of school knowing like very little about the industry or, building
details.
Yeah. So it's really like, it's a mindset that they're trying to set up in your head.
That's the toolkit, and it's important. It's really important. So, and the architecture curriculum is very rigorous, and I love the way they've set it up because people who won't be good at being architects can't get through school. Honestly, it's a great filter and a great barrier to the kinds of people who end up to be good architects. If you can make it through school, you'll be able to make it the rest of the way. And if you don't make it through school, you would have never been a good architect. It's good that you failed, frankly. That's what that's what I mean. Is if you saw, whoa, this is way more than I ever thought. Goodbye. And good. That's exactly what we want in the industry is architects who don't try after failing in architecture school. So I totally hand that to architecture schools and think they do a great job with that.
Yeah, it's definitely, school's the foundation. As you talked about, Denise had to use calculus the first few weeks she was at the resort just because of whims, not because we use it in design. It's that foundation allows you to have confidence in the code and the equations because it's been proven. We're not asking you to prove it, but right. Going through school gives you that knowledge. Are there any funny stories that we haven't talked about that you can think of that should be brought to light? I'm disappointed you didn't mention my Yesterland emails. My weekly emails too.
I would like
those. You still do those, Gates?
Well, no. When I left, okay. I don't do those anymore. But I felt a fun way to try and impart some history to the interns was to find an attraction or something that was no longer in existence at Disney and give them a primer on it. All right, what are our biggest pet peeves? Did you figure that out? I asked you before the show.
Let's see. You don't like fire protection engineers.
That's a pretty good one. Does Tim have the same feeling towards them?
Oh, you know what? No, I don't. But there's another engineer that was, and frankly, not an engineer as far as I'm concerned. And I've told them so
Industrial?
before. No,
Computer.
they
Do I know who you're talking about,
software
Tim?
engineers.
Oh,
Yes,
no.
yes, those
I
are
remember
authors.
that.
Software
not
engineers are not engineers, and here's why. Every legitimate engineering branch deals with physics and the physical world, and atoms and science and the fundamental forces of nature and all that kind of stuff. Software engineers are outside of that, completely outside of it, never touch it. So to me, that's just, it's not engineering. It's not. It's design. It's authorship. It makes them a chef, but it does not make them an engineer, because they're lacking that connection to physics. They don't use physics to solve their problems. Period. So that's
you missed the one grandfather that we allow for engineer, and that's the train conductor.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's
I don't want
acceptable.
to get into every level of engineering, just because some of them will
if you
get
drive
me in
if you
trouble.
drive a locomotive, I will call you an engineer. I want to go back to the fire protection comment though, because there are people who I really like who are fire protection engineers, and it's not so much the fire protection engineers as it is the fire protection code and NFPA and how they operate in a disciplined vacuum that irks me a lot. So, yes, that's one of my top pet peeves. Very good, Victoria.
Victoria, who has to deal with that more than we do, honestly.
Well, and we get a lot of questions as structural engineers about fire protection, and it's like, I don't care. Like, they try and push it onto us, and they're like,
Yeah, they're basically downstream of us in the sense that their job is to protect our stuff.
Alle, you know one of my huge pet peeves.
You're gonna say it, and I probably will. But
You left it on my desk the last day of your
Oh,
internship.
glitter! You don't
that's
like
funny.
glitter. I
especially
love glitter,
especially
on the other
Alle.
hand.
Alle and her intern group
We
loved
love
glitter. And
Yeah, that's because I learned at Disney World that you could get pixie dusted, and I brought that back to the intern group. So when we went to the parks, we'd always get pixie dusted. So
their
that's why.
little alcove sparkled. It was
Yeah.
horrendous. Just the floor, everything. You're like, what are you doing over here? And I'll have to
None
find
of
the
your
picture,
business.
but my desk was glittered. Luckily, it was glitter tape, because I would
Yeah, I
have
made
hunted
sure it was
Alle down
tape.
and killed her if she had used real glitter. But it's
That's
very
funny.
festive.
You've heard of
I don't
glitter
even-
my enemies, right? You mail them an envelope and they open
Yes.
it and it's just glitter.
Yes, that's why I open. Not that I get a lot of cards very surgically, just to avoid that negative pressure that causes them to explode.
You'll get a Christmas card from all three of us this year, Gabe.
Yes, I'm sure I will, and it will be
Oh my
heavier
gosh.
than normal. Ugh.
I've got one from a design standpoint. Engineers who dive into somebody else's spreadsheet and use it without understanding it and just spit out results. I've seen, and I'm not the only person to talk about this either. And yes, I am thinking of somebody in particular, but don't just try to round up all the spreadsheets, and because you're going to mess up. If you don't know what's happening, you're going to mess up. And as an engineer, the difference between an engineer and a contractor is that a contractor can possibly know 90 to 95% about how it goes together. It's that last 5% that we're responsible for. And if you don't get that, you're going to mess that up in somebody else's spreadsheet that you don't understand.
Yeah, that's make your own spreadsheet. That's the
Or
best way to
just
learn it.
Don't let it be a black box to you. You have to understand what's happening.
I think, Tim, that's why up until now, 4 years into my career, I still do hand calcs all the time, is because, I'll use spreadsheets, but I
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable using it so
Well,
often.
write spreadsheets,
Right.
write them
Yeah.
and test them. That's a very good thing to do. Writing a spreadsheet really helps you to capture all the various little fringe cases,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why, and it really solidifies your understanding of a concept when you can write a solid spreadsheet.
And
Right.
I love authoring spreadsheets. And the
Me
key
too.
to a good spreadsheet, put the reference from the section of AISC or
Yeah.
the NDS or whatever
Yes.
next to the equation with the equation, not just it's 3.
Yeah.
Right. That's eliminating the black box. That's what you're doing, is you're walking somebody through your process.
Take the time to do subscripts and postscripts and all the things to make it look like a code book. And the great thing I found about that is you print it out and you put it in your calc package and the city goes check, check, check. And there's no question about it. So yeah, that's a good one, Tim. Know the software.
My first job, for the entire first year, you had to do hand calcs only. You could not use any software. Everything was hand calced. And then I got annoyed just like doing all these same hand calcs, and I started building just a lot of my own spreadsheets that I still have and use because I didn't want to write the same thing 10 times on every project.
Yeah, that's what
I
happened.
definitely tried using, like, I think of the steel manual in particular. I think I've used all the equations in the specification in there at some point or another, because if I haven't done it before, I want to see how it works once at least. And then one that I really thought was interesting was section I, which is composite beams. I really liked trying to figure that out, hand calc composite beams by hand, but also things like single angles, which do some really crazy stuff.
Single angle. Tim, do you remember when I sent you an email a long time ago about single angles?
I don't.
This was like a long time ago. I couldn't figure it out, and I was like, Tim, I can't figure out like what this is. And then because I was making a single angle spreadsheet, which is very hard to do. And
there's a lot.
And I did, and then I couldn't figure it out, and took a break for probably 6 months, and then came back to it, and then everything made sense again. And so now I have a single angle spreadsheet that works in a nice fashion. But you gave me some answer, and I was like, I don't quite know what this is. But then when I came back to it, I was like, oh, yeah, I get this now. I get it. But that was a while ago.
That's good. Yeah. Hopefully one of the things you learn as an intern is just to not stop learning and to continue to attack things that, you're going to continue to find things. So I like
the code changes. So you got to learn it.
And the code changes. Yeah. There's another pet peeve. Oh my God. Have I yelled at some older, much, older than me engineers for using the 9th edition ASD manual from 1989 in modern calculations.
Yeah, so when I was trying to think of something you guys taught me that was wrong, I was thinking so hard, and I thought of other people who have definitely taught me something that turned out to be outdated, but it wasn't you guys.
Gates more than me, but Gates and I both really like. A lot of engineers are very resistant to the new codes, and we tend to dive into them. So we kind of enthusiastically pursue new codes, whereas a lot of other engineers, once they've conquered a set of codes, they will belligerently resist learning the new codes for the rest of their lives.
These are the codes I took my PE on or my SE on, so that's it.
Those are the ones they really, really studied. And those are, I don't know, it's just, well, frankly, they're just not as good at engineers. And when I go to universities and give talks and things like that, that's what I tell them. I'm like, you need to remember that you need to keep moving and keep moving forward and progress with the progression of your industry, and not just get stuck in a place. You can be a crappy engineer and do just the minimum amount to get by, or you can be a really good engineer and really study the stuff that you're learning right now and the things that you're going to learn in the future, which is why I make all you guys do calculus. As soon as I meet you for the first time, I try to show you your education mattered. That's why I do that. That is exactly why I do that calculus thing.
Awesome. Well, I want to go around the room one last time. We'll let the interns say anything they've got left to say, and then Tim, I'll let you go first, but I think you should say something nice about each of the interns.
Oh, something nice about each of the interns. You're all so pretty and nice.
So let's let Alle go first, and then Victoria, then Denise. Anything left?
I was just gonna say that Gates, I didn't really touch on like things that you've taught me that really helped me in my career, but you definitely helped me with like my resume. And also when I was first looking for a job, I had like 2 offers. And one of them was for a bridge company and one of them was for a building company. And you were like, don't take the bridge one if you don't want to do bridges. And I was like, all right,
oh, so biased.
That was a softball. That was an easy one.
So I didn't take that one, and I got the offer at the buildings, and I'm doing building design still. So that
Nothing
really
wrong
helped
with bridges.
my career.
But if you don't want to do them, don't.
I've done some bridge design too, and that was not for me. So
it's different.
Yeah.
Victoria?
This is just final thoughts. Okay, I feel like this needs to be mentioned. Tim, in the stuff he mentors people, he's known for giving the guys skincare advice, and that's just so needed.
I do what?
He gives skincare advice to the male interns.
Oh my God.
Get the SPFs. You taught
Oh,
somebody
right.
that. You
Oh
remember?
yeah. I don't let anybody go out into the field without putting on SPF. Definitely.
You
And then I told him-
prescribed a specific moisturizer with SPF 25 to somebody.
Yeah. Derek still uses the one that I suggested to him. Yeah. I'm like, you kids need to start with your SPF right now. That part is true. It's more about the SPF than it is about anything else. That's the part that I really harp on.
Well, it's good to moisturize too.
And that's just a wonderful benefit.
I said we covered it all. We covered it all when we had our
That's
mentors
hilarious.
and mentees.
Yeah, really like life
It's true.
mentoring.
Yeah.
Denise.
Final thoughts. Well, first off, now that I have my license, thanks Tim and Gates for signing off those papers for me. Although Gates, I know that we had trouble with USPS twice last year trying to get that stupid envelope to me. But I know we don't talk often, but I really do appreciate you guys like being the foundation of my career, because I really appreciate it nowadays, because I'm like, sometimes in my head I'm like, what would Tim tell me to do, or what would Gates think?
WWTV.
Do the opposite.
Yeah.
So-
Honestly, the thing that I want you guys to take forward is to realize the importance of helping the next generation too. So, teach. That's kind of why I asked that question earlier. Continue to teach other people, realize what it may have done for you, and the parts, the methods and that sort of thing that worked for you, and carry that forward.
Yeah, and I think overall too, it's just that, and we've touched base on this, just the fact that, as engineers, we're always learning something new. Like once I kind of grasped that mindset, I started being a lot less harsh on myself for not knowing a lot of things, because I know that
Good.
there's things that you and Gates, don't know about yet, but given
Yeah,
the skills,
it's all in the books.
given the skills that you've taught me, it's helped me learn so much more and, advance in my career. And it's just, I really appreciate it.
Oh, good.
Thank you. Well, and West Coast engineers, structural specific, I'd say they're a lot more broad in what they design than the East Coast and Southern engineers, where there's more delegation design. My experience on the West Coast and Arizona, Utah, Nevada, California has all been, if it's a structure, we'll do it. not it's cold form, I'm out, or if it's a steel connection, I'm out. So
All right.
there's a lot to know if you're going to grasp the, get into everything. And Tim and I have talked because we've done plastic and glass and aluminum and stainless, carbon fiber,
structures.
fiberglass, all
Fiber
sorts of
reinforced.
things.
You name
you're
it.
in themed
Cable
entertainment.
structures. Mm-hmm.
I remember one day we had a piece of fiberglass and we put an eye bolt in it, and we had a sensor that measured compression or tension, and we did a pull test on it.
Yeah, and tests and that kind of thing. And I want to encourage you guys also too. If there's something that you suspect can work, but you just don't know enough about it, use your Rolodex and ask people, ask us, like how can I get to my answer?
All right, Tim, your turn to go around.
What am I talking about?
You can, whatever you want to tell the interns, the former interns, now licensed folk.
Yeah. That's the main thing is continue to teach and know who knows what and you're a better engineer for who you know. So tap into your extroverted side if there is one, and go learn what other people know, because it just it helps to make you a better solution provider by being able to tap into the knowledge of others.
All right, I'm going to start with Victoria, since she's the odd woman out with being the architect. As has been said, you're very tenacious, and you want to know the answer. When there's a question out there, whether it's architecturally related or not. You're like, but why is this? Why can't these two things happen? And that level of curiosity, or I don't know if it's curiosity at that point, but you want to know why something has to be a certain way. And then when you have that answer, you're good. You're going to work the problem at that point. And so your ability to absorb other disciplines will help you greatly as an architect, and that you'll be a credit to your people, your architecture people, and you'll be a pleasure to work with as an engineer in supporting an architectural design. Which
you're going to do great. You've got all the parts and pieces. So
to me, that's high praise that engineers are going to like to work with you.
Well, I like working with engineers because a
That's
lot
very
of architects
helpful.
complain about it, and I'm like, I don't know. I love working with engineers. Like, it's great.
That's good.
So,
I feel the same way about architects, and a lot of engineers complain about architects. So, I mean, if you're the sort of person who can realize the value of your team, it makes you better at what you do.
Absolutely. And then Alle, it's been a pleasure to work with you on your career beyond just the structure. For me, you get it. You get the structure. You understand the language and the concepts of design, and so it's very easy to talk to you about structures. And you are willing to admit when you don't know.
Yeah.
If we give you an explanation and you're like, but I don't quite understand, you don't just go okay and then go hide back at your desk and try and figure it out. You are comfortable asking for help, and I appreciate that. That makes it easy to work with, and you get concerned when people don't say I don't understand ever.
Yeah.
Because you figure there's got to be something there that you don't understand. So your transparency gives a lot of confidence when we work with you.
And it's going back to what you guys were talking about earlier, where I'm like, you get to that point where you're like, okay, I know that I don't know as much as there is that's out there. And people who are older have more experience, like they understand and they will give you a pretty good reason versus you trying to sit there and think of 10 different reasons as to why. And once you've ran out, you're like, okay, I don't know, please help.
Absolutely, not a problem. And Denise, so I've said prettiest calculations. So it was always a pleasure to review your calculation package. because
What that means is that she's confident about what she's putting on paper, that she's just like, this is how it's done and this is the right answer. And that's, we're not just talking about, aesthetically pretty,
right.
No,
it was
there's meaning behind it.
It was the right order. It was the right information. It was the right amount of information. Precision was a little bit too exact. So,
did she carry extra decimal points?
if I recall,
Probably.
right, you
Probably
like going down to the thousandth of a foot, and you're like, I don't know that matters, but it's not wrong. It's just a little more effort than is needed, but that's fine.
I still do that today. Like I know I think, Tim, I asked you the question when I was an intern, like, how many sig figs do I need? And I think you said 4.
Yeah.
But even if it's just 4, like, I'm like, I'm just
actually, the answer is
3. Okay.
And I put an asterisk on that because a leading 1 will pop up in about 30% of calculations. And I don't want to use that leading 1 as a reason to delete a significant digit at the other end if it's going to pop up 1 in 3 times. It's I forgot the name of the theorem, but there's a theorem that says that 1 in 3 times a 1 will pop up on the front. So basically, you don't include zeros and you don't include leading 1s when you're calculating that 3 significant digits. So sorry, see, I just jumped right into the teaching. I'm sorry. Yeah, there we go.
Absolutely. And so I think with the clarity that you are able to convey your calculations, that leads to a lot of confidence. And life's busy, so you probably didn't get as much attention as you needed from myself during the year that you were at Disney. But it was because you clearly identified your calculations. And when we had projects where we were doing all the internal design, it was easy to review and quick, which meant you could do 3 or 4 iterations very quickly and have it reviewed very quickly. And we would know we were getting the right answer. And so I do applaud you for, almost project managing the structure on some of these smaller projects where you had to deal with drafting and the calculations and the interface with the rest of the design team. So I think all 3 of you, and I invited a few more interns who couldn't make it. I'd say majority of the interns I've dealt with are go-getters. They're people who are doing what they're supposed to learn the discipline.
Yeah.
And occasionally we run into interns who aren't, but
yeah,
we do our
rarely
best.
It has happened. It's funny because there's usually a pretty big chasm between the good ones and the not good ones. They're pretty easy to identify. And I think Disney overall is really good at picking out good interns. Almost all of them have been really good, frankly.
Yeah. So applause to you. I'm glad you're all licensed. I feel like done.
Yeah, good job. Good job, guys.
Now I can call and ask you questions and
Right?
get your opinions on
just,
things.
Just wait for that.
Yes. Yeah. So
The day will come.
anytime I have to deal with a composite, I'm going to call Denise.
Oh, fun.
Well, thank you for joining the Rankled Engineer. This has been a fun trip down memory lane, and I appreciate your experience, and thank you for the nice things you said to us. I expected a little bit more ribbing, but that's okay. It's okay. We'll be good. Have a good evening. We'll have to talk to you soon. Have a good evening, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.